Gentlemen, you can't fight in here. This is the war room.
Welcome to the Cornhusker Corner with Blake.
Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
And Brooks.
Is mayonnaise an instrument?
And you better bet your bottom dollar that these two brothers know how to handle business.
Here's a hand up to Thunder, who gives it back to Mike Stokes. He's going to throw it. He's got a man out.
All right, welcome to Cornhusker Corner, where there's no place like
this podcast.
You are so loud, my friend. As always, we are your hosts, Blake, and my brother
Brooks.
So another day, another week down in this football season. Another great Husker football game to watch.
Fantastic.
It was fantastic.
I will always remember this weekend. I'll cherish it for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
That's sarcasm at its finest. But sarcasm is depression's best friend, which is by the way what this podcast is sponsored by depression.
This episode of Cornhusker Corner is sponsored by depression.
Right,
you find yourself not being able to get out of bed, that feeling of tightness in your chest.
Right.
That's just depression.
Right. And we're excited to do business with them.
Yeah, and a knock to the nuts, that creeping feeling behind your gut, that's depression.
Oh, yeah, and we're excited to finally have a sponsor. We're excited to do business with them. And while we mention our sponsor, I want to go ahead and mention to subscribe and like to the channel. Give us a like if you like what you see. Also, go ahead and give us your comment down below if you'd like to. Tell us who you'd like to be the next head coach of Nebraska, or tell us why we're idiots. We don't really care. We just want participation. So go ahead and give us a comment and subscribe and like to us. Also, follow us on Twitter at CHusker Corner, and on Instagram, the page is called Cornhusker Corner. So here we are. We just got completely murdered by Michigan.
Yeah.
A game that last year came down to the wire. A game that last year Nebraska had a chance to win, in all reality. Is Michigan that much better this year, or are we that much worse? That's kind of how I'm trying to think about this.
I mean, if you watch the game, the final score really wasn't indicative of how well our defense played. Kind of how the past couple of weeks have gone, really. And I think it's less that I think they are a better team this year, especially their quarterback's a lot more athletic. He makes a lot better decisions. Not that McNamara was terrible. I just think that guy's good.
Right. I agree.
And I think their offense is a lot better. I think our offense took a step back, and that's why we couldn't be competitive with them this year. And if you look at it from that offensive perspective, I mean, Casey, since he went down in Illinois, how many touchdowns have we scored? One touchdown.
Literally one
touchdown in hold on, math. 6 quarters of football.
Yeah, I believe I have a screenshot of it, but the statistic is crazy. Since Casey has gone down, we've had like 13 drives, and we've had like 12 punts, only 1 touchdown. Yeah. Like it's a pretty crazy statistic. And I was there the game that Casey went down, and I can attest to it, man. The stadium felt that, and we all knew. Essentially, what this is a result of is you have schemed your offense to your top level quarterback who can run it. And you've forgotten about the fact that this is college football in the Big Ten, and you're going to need depth at every position, including quarterback. And I'm just not sure that they got a quarterback on the roster that is capable of running Whipple's offense the way Whipple wants it to be ran. I'm just not sure. Besides, Casey just does a couple of things in the pocket and with his release that are pretty high level. And we've talked about it. He doesn't run enough. I mean, the criticism of the case, he doesn't run enough. I don't think there's openings where he doesn't run, and he's not the fastest QB in the world, but he's fast enough. But he does a couple of things in the pocket with his release and with the way he reads things and how he gets rid of the ball, his footwork, little things like that just allow him to operate in this offense, and it just doesn't allow our other guys to operate at that level.
No, and listen, and especially the how that game started out. I mean, Chubba Purdy still can't throw the ball.
Agreed.
He had. I feel bad for the kid. Right as he was starting to really kind of find his footing a little bit, just like, getting a lot more confidence and running. And at least trying to put the ball in the right place. Like you could see him start to get a little bit of confidence, and then he gets a high ankle sprain, and now he's out for the year. So I do feel bad for him.
I do too.
Him to play first.
Yeah.
And I was livid. Actually,
we both were. I mean, I released a string of tweets that before the game had even started, where I didn't get too personal with him because, I'm posting stuff online and stuff. Don't want to do that. But I did say, look, this is a ridiculous decision. I mean, start Logan. What are you doing? And we both were kind of in the same boat there. And it just got to the point where I was like, oh, those tweets might not be aging so well here coming up, because he had a decent play right off the bat in the game where they converted on a first down with a good throw to Marcus Washington. And then he had a drive, I think it was in the second quarter, early to mid second quarter, where he was finally starting to string together a couple of first downs in a row, and we were getting into scoring territory. And then he gets hurt, and it didn't look good. I thought it might have been knee in the moment. Ended up being ankle. He has a high ankle sprain. He's going to be out for the rest of the year. So unfortunate. I even remember thinking, I was like, dang, dude, like, are you kidding me? Like, finally, when the dude's starting to look like, okay, he's getting a little comfortable in there. It's just, there is no, it's a rough sport. It's a brutal sport sometimes.
Yeah. And, so I think as far as the offense goes, again, it was just kind of a game where, like, we were just calling stuff and it just wasn't working, wasn't getting executed. We were dropping balls. We were having passes thrown not in the right place, especially with Chubba. He was not putting the ball outside of that one pass to Washington. He can't throw.
Yeah. And there were a couple that were close. There were a couple that were close that probably should have been caught. One that comes to mind is there was a Travis out of the flat. He threw it behind him. Definitely threw it behind him, but Travis should have caught it. Another one was Trey. Trey was coming back to the ball. Actually, this was when Logan was in. Another key drop when Logan was in.
Yeah.
Logan technically threw it behind him, but he threw him back. And Trey read that, and he came back. He just dropped it. And that was frustrating. So our QBs didn't get any help either. The offensive line played okay.
They played fine. They played fine.
Okay.
We were able to run the ball decently at times. But that's a stout Michigan team. It just is.
It is.
It wasn't like the past 2 weeks where after the game I was like, why did we lose to that team? We have so many more athletes.
No, they to be honest, I'm kind of surprised that they didn't score more than they scored. Because here's kind of how I feel about it. They could run all over us all day. That's kind of what it felt like. Maybe we would stop them 1 out of 3 runs, but on the 2 runs that they would break through, it'd be a 5 to 7 yard run. So what does it matter, right? And they kind of got a little pass happy mid game. Where they were getting into 3rd and long situations, and it seemed like so many of these games, it seemed like Michigan for the first half was like, come on, Nebraska, please stay in the game, please. And we were like, we can't. Like, that's kind of what it felt like. It felt like Michigan was doing everything they could to keep us in that game. And I will say, like, it reminds me of Alabama when they had those game manager quarterbacks. And then Nick Saban finally said, okay, I need an athlete at that position. Yeah. And he started getting athletes. Jalen Hurts, all those types. So Cade McNamara is more like A.J. McCarron, whereas J.J. McCarthy is more like a Jalen Hurts. He's not as good of a thrower, but he is very athletic. He missed numerous guys on deep balls yesterday. His deep ball's not good. So their offense their defense is elite. Their defense is good. It's really,
Yeah.
really good. It's
And-
borderline SEC top tier level of defense.
Well, we'll see. I mean, they looked like that last year as well, and
Right.
then they played the top team in college football, and
well, to be fair, that Georgia defense was maybe one of the greatest defenses of all time when you look at the raw numbers and you look at they ran into a complete brick wall. And I kind of look at that the way I look at the Nebraska-Miami game back in 2001. They sort of ran into a brick wall, and we did get killed. But if you look at the team that we played against, 31-17 ain't that bad, or whatever it was, 38-17, something like that. They had Ed Reed and all those people, Ray Lewis, and
No, you're right there. I think the biggest thing, especially so going into halftime, right, 17-3, and something happened right at the end of the first half, I believe, that really threw a wrench into the offense, put us in a situation where we didn't think we were going to have to be in. Because, Logan's in there. You might be able to scheme around it. But something happened, and Whip got nay-nayed.
I didn't even see that banner until you
Yeah.
just put it up.
Yeah.
We've got nay-nayed.
Whip got nay-nayed. And it was scary because
It was
on
scary. I'm not trying to laugh, but that is a funny way to
No.
put it.
No, it was that on a punt, or was that after we scored the field goal?
That
That was after we scored the field
was
goal, right? That was on a kickoff.
Yeah. It was on
Yeah.
a kickoff. It was on a
Yeah, so it
kickoff.
was right after we put together a little bit of a drive, got a little bit of that momentum, but couldn't get it in the end zone. But coming in cold, especially that environment with Logan and everything, I didn't expect us to score a touchdown when I saw Purdy go
No,
down.
and Mickey said something about that wipeout today.
Yeah.
By the way, and it
But-
was hilarious.
Yeah, well, but I was watching it live, and I knew what Whipple was like wearing because they kept showing him, and then live, I was like, oh my gosh, I think that was Whip. And before the broadcast just kind of kept going, and I actually on the TV around it, and I was like, oh my gosh, that was Whipple. Is he okay?
Yeah.
I mentioned it, and then I fast forward, and then they were like, he was sitting there on the ground, and I was just like, oh my gosh,
That's
who
bad.
does that happen to? Who does that?
I
happen
saw
to?
someone lying on the ground. And I was like, wouldn't it be terrible if it was Whipple? That'd be awful. That's like the worst person for that to happen to on the sideline. And then you texted me like that was Whipple. And I was like, no. But yeah, so Whipple has insisted all year that he wants to be on the sideline. And Mickey today at his press conference was asked a question about that. So let's go ahead and I'll share this. We'll bring it to 137. Oh, dude, it was so funny.
You continue to call from the box from here on out, or do you have an update on how Coach Whipple's doing?
Well, Sean, maybe you can convince him because I told him in the beginning to go to the box. Okay? And he got wiped out. So it was bad. But I think he's going to go to the box now. Andrew's going to be in charge of that. So if it doesn't happen, it's on Andrew.
Told him from the beginning, go to the box.
He wiped out. It was bad. And he even had a little laugh in it. He couldn't even contain himself. Yeah. Oh man. When I saw that, I was like, yo, it's evident to me that the way they're getting along is the way that David Gilmour and Roger Waters got along in Pink Floyd. They were good at creativity because they butted heads all the time, and maybe they could make that work over the long term. But it's obvious Whip ain't Mickey's guy. If somehow Mickey does get hired as the head coach at this point, I do not expect Whipple to be coming back. I wish him the best, and I wish him all health. I actually really like Whipple as a guy. I think he's funny.
As a person, I think he's a good football coach.
Yes,
he is a good football coach.
Yeah,
I just don't think he works in the Big Ten West, and I don't think we have the people there to, facilitate what he wants. And look, right now we are in week 11?
Yeah.
We're about to go into week 11 or something like that. And if you remember the first couple weeks, our offense was moving. Our offense was grinding. And it was our defense that was like, oh my gosh, if we could just get our defense to play even a little bit better. And now it's been Flipped on its
completely
head. So-
flipped on its head. Yeah.
and like the head coach got fired. There's so much movement, so much like just stuff going on. That's hard for anybody to manage. And he's a first
Right.
year. It's his first year here. Well,
Right.
it's his only year here. But like, that's gonna be really hard to manage. So I don't blame him.
It's not the right fit for the conference. I
It's
agree
just
with
not.
you.
It's just
Yeah,
not.
I agree.
And
That's evident in how the year went. Like you said, I mean, the offense had success against our out of conference opponents largely, except for Oklahoma, and then early on in the year when we were playing, our crossover games in Rutgers and Indiana, and then when it got to deep in the year against Big Ten West opponents, that Big Ten West we were talking about that a little bit last night watching the Eagles game. Kind of seemed like Washington was doing that to the Eagles. Big Ten Westing having long sustained drives where they somehow get only to the 40-yard line, but in 6 minutes. And then they kick a field goal, and the run and gun, run and shoot offense style, I guess is what it's called, like what whip runs. It just isn't going to work. It could work against a team like Jeff Brahms, Purdue, because Purdue is largely built of that same style. That's why he's such an anomaly in this conference. Is he's sort of built his team like Nebraska has tried to, but he's had success with it largely, especially for being at Purdue.
he's had Purdue success for sure.
Yeah, 100%. Different standards at different places. But yeah, I think, where I think Whipple would be a hell of a fit? At a place like Houston going into the Big 12. He'd be a hell of a fit at a place like that.
Yeah.
Because that offense would totally work in that conference or in the ACC even, maybe even in the Pac-12. But it's not going to work in the Big Ten, and it probably wouldn't work in the SEC either.
Nah, and I think he retires after this year, honestly.
Yeah. His offense might work in the SEC if he had like Tennessee to work with, like the type of tools they have, a Hendon Hooker at quarterback and all the receivers that they got. His offense would work with that team, no doubt about it. But with a team like we have, we have, it became evident as the year went on that we don't have the depth at some of these positions that we thought we did going into the year. And Trey is the guy, and Marcus is the guy, and Alante is good. And some of these guys are
good.
Good
Old Iron Crotch.
Yeah, yeah, man, that play was crazy, man.
Yeah.
That play was crazy. But yeah, so Whipple hurt his knee from what I heard. He's going to be up in the booth from now on. He wanted to come back out on the field and call plays in the second half, but I don't know who was calling plays in the second half.
It was Mickey.
Yeah, but it didn't look like it from when they panned over to him and the offense was on the field. It didn't look like it. It looked like he was giving encouragement to some GA who was calling plays, is what it seemed like.
Maybe it was just Logan.
I mean, who knows, man? I don't think it was Mickey. He didn't have a play sheet in hand. I mean, he wasn't signaling to anybody anything. He was just like giving encouragement to everybody. So yeah, it was a depressing game. That's sort of why we've chosen to talk about it now instead of our normal recap time, because it's just going to be hard to fit. I mean, to sit there and watch a blowout. I mean, you hope the team went over the footage because that's their job. But like for us, it just sucks.
We even
I
talked
rewatched
about
the game one time and I couldn't again.
Yeah, we even talked about some like new stuff that like we were gonna try to start doing for the stream. And excuse me, and like breaking down some plays and here and there. And I was just watching the game. I had my notes already, and I didn't take a single one because no play at no time. I was just like, oh, I want to talk about that one. At no point.
Oh my god.
So,
my god.
yeah.
So okay, before we get on to the future, because that's kind of what is the topic line for everybody at this point, is sort of talking about the future, Wisconsin, the future of the program, big picture items, things like that. Before we get on to that, the other night, Mickey's prodigy, Justin Jefferson. That's kind of, I guess I could say Justin Jefferson, because that's how they'd say it in Louisiana anyway. He was a 2-star that Mickey recruited and saw talent in. And brought him to LSU, and he was a part of that big 2019 team. He had a catch the other day that was one of the most insane catches I've ever seen.
Spectacular. And that game was crazy.
Yeah.
Like, not
so
just this catch.
Here's the catch in slow motion.
Look back at this. How does he maintain possession all the way through, not allow that ball to hit the ground, and he just steals it from Cam Lewis.
Foul. Unnecessary roughness. Defense number 47.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That's a 15-yard penalty. Automatic.
Whoops.
All right, you can cut it. Yeah, you can cut it. For those just listening on the podcast, if you haven't watched it, go watch it because it is crazy. You've probably seen it if you even follow sports a little bit, but it's a crazy catch. And,
so Mickey said
guy.
something. It's a Mickey guy, and so Mickey was asked about it today at the press conference, and he sort of joked about it, and it was kind of funny. So let me go to that 6:23. This is all courtesy of Husker Online again.
Okay. I talked to him a week ago because he was going up for jump balls, but he was going up with his chest. And I said, just fight through with your hands and try to get your hands on the ball. But, I did drills at LSU, helped him do that. No joking.
It's funny because that's a joke that, like, if you're in a crowd of normal people, it lands immediately because they know he's joking. But because he's in a crowd of media people, at first they're like, oh, no, yes, they ddid drills like that at LSU, yes. And then he had to, like, cut the tension by telling him it was a joke.
Yeah, that's funny.
Hilarious, man.
Sam
okay.
McEwen was probably like, then why haven't we been doing that the whole time? I can't believe it. I don't know why.
You do it, Sam. You do it. Okay, so we got Wisconsin coming up, and we got coaching rumors galore. We got lots of stuff we could talk about. It's been flavor of the day for the last 5 days as far as coaching. On Friday, it was Deion Sanders. Over the weekend, it was Matt Rule, and now and then yesterday, it seemed like it was a flavor of like the hour. It seemed like every 4 hours it was, Lance Leipold signed a contract, and then the next hour was like, no, Matt Rule was here, blah 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 blah, and then the next hour it was like, I think who was the other? Stoops. It's like, I think Mark Stoops actually, blah 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 blah. So people are getting crazy. It's heating up quite a bit, and I'm waiting for an official announcement, but. I think we can cross Mickey Joseph off the list, right? I think.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at him, like, I don't think he wants it. I think he wants to be here for sure. I just don't think that he wants the head coaching job. Just in terms of like, I'm not saying he's not taking it seriously. He obviously is, but he's trying to keep the team together this year, and I think that's his main focus and that's his main job. I don't think he really. He's even said some stuff in the press conference that kind of made me think, okay, I don't think that he even wants that at this point in his career right now. So
yeah, and we've talked about that, and I kind of agree with you. But let me ask you this: from as it stands right now, give me like a horse racing style odds prediction: 22-1, 10-1, whatever it is.
That Mickey coming around the outside.
That Mickey Joseph is still on staff come time in December or January next year.
Whoever gets the job, we already know that it was worked in to him taking the interim job that he would be here next year. If he gets the opportunity to be here, he will still be here. And it is on whoever is coming in to be the head coach to look at his resume and let it speak for itself as a wide receiver coach and probably assistant head coach. That speaks for itself. It's a bad sign, actually, I think, if somebody were to come in and force him out. That's a bad sign the only coach on staff that I would say that's a bad sign. Bush has done a fantastic job this year too. And even Applewhite with the running backs, so much better this year. But the only guy I would be like, if they kind of got forced out, Mickey, that would be kind of like a bad omen, I think. Just because of his recruiting, how he's coached up multiple really great players. He's a Nebraska guy because it doesn't look like we're going to hire a Nebraska guy. So, you still have to have that kind of, you just do in a place like Nebraska.
Yeah, the only way I wouldn't be mad if he isn't retained is if, like, let's say Urban Meyer comes in and he just stocks the stockpile of assistant coaches with people like Brian Harsin and like the best wide receiver, the best wide receiver coach in the country and the best O-line coach in the country. And, then I wouldn't be mad. But in my opinion, Mickey's in the conversation for one of the top recruiters and wide receivers in the country. So even in that situation, it's still like, okay, but why wouldn't you keep the Nebraska guy on just for good faith with everybody?
Especially for retention for some of these guys that he brought in.
And look, I'll say this too. Bill Bush isn't getting enough love. That guy deserves to stay here. He deserves to stay here. He is a hell of a recruiter himself. You look at the last 20 years, some of the best blue chip recruits that Nebraska has had in the last 20 years were Bill Bush that got them. And then look at what he's done with the defense. It is night and day. They are playing
crazy.
It's insane how much better they are playing. And he didn't get the rookie syndrome where they started out scheming him later on, but they've played great. Go ahead, sorry.
Is that because he's been doing such a great job of simplifying things? Or is it because that we actually started tackling in practice? Because if you look back on the games, position wise, our guys were kind of in the same good position and stuff. They weren't making tackles. That was really our biggest problem in the first couple games of the season. We were making tackles.
Well, I'm not that much of an X's and O's guy. I'm not that much of an X's and O's guy. But from my vantage point, he didn't really change the base defense scheme wise that much. Except for checking out of certain calls. They don't check out of calls as much. It seems like they're playing a lot more man, and it seems like they're just less confused when motion hits. Like Wisconsin, the Wisconsin 2012 championship game has been brought up a lot, and basically one of the things was Bo's defense was trained in that game that if they had motion at all to go back to base defense. And who was the coach at the time? Bielema. He found that little wrinkle and he motioned every play, and they were confused the whole game. And so they just, there's less confusion now. It seems like they don't have as many checks. They're in the call, and the call's the call. But also it's tackling in practice. I agree with that. But as far as the Mickey staying or leaving point goes, I just think it is so evident that he understands Nebraska, and he understands not just Nebraska, but how to recruit Nebraska. And matter of fact, he was asked in the press conference, what would it take to be the head coach here, essentially, is what he was asked. And I'll go ahead and play his answer right now.
Somebody else to be successful at this program, what's it going to take to get this program?
Roster management, a more competitive roster. And understand what you need to do in this conference on the offense side of the ball and the defense side of the ball, and in special teams, because it's a different makeup with the conference. So you got to understand that. Then you also got to understand where you're at. You got to understand that you don't sit in the middle of Texas, the middle of Louisiana, the middle of Georgia. That you got to be able to go down there and convince those kids to come up here. So he's got to understand that recruiting is going to be a big part. Whoever sits in that chair, recruiting is going to be a big part, and you got to want to work. Because it's not like working when you're at Georgia, because they right there. You got to work here. You got to work. So whoever takes this job, they better be ready to work.
Is it a different roster configuration that you think you need in the Big Ten compared to what you saw in the SEC?
That's an interesting question. Sipple asked, is it a different roster configuration that you feel you need in the Big Ten versus the SEC?
Well, I think it comes down to depth. You got to have more depth. You got to have, instead of having, 12 offensive linemen, you got to have 15 or 16. Instead of having 12 D linemen, you got to have 15 or 16. You got to have 12 receivers. You got to have 4 quarterbacks. You just got to have depth, and it's got to be competitive. Like, it can't be a big drop off from 1 to 2. So if you get a competitive roster where they're competing, that's going to make the team better.
Why do you think you need more depth in the Big Ten?
Because you bang a whole bunch. You play in the middle of the field. SEC, you cover every inch of the field. But in the Big Ten, you play in that phone booth. So you're going to lose some kids. Because you know what I'm saying? They're hitting each other like bam, bam, bam. So if I hit you like that 3 times, you and I, both of us going to be sore. So you got to have depth. You got to be able to play, I said 6 to 8 D linemen. You got to be able to play 4 to 5 linebackers. just because you're getting so much banging in the 65 to 70 plays of just banging. That's what I'm learning about this conference.
So that's something that not a whole lot of coaches have really admitted, like 100% full-heartedly to the media, that like the Big Ten's different, and like we need, you know what I mean, and like we need to recruit and scheme and think about the orientation of this conference. Like what was Scott Frost famous for saying? Oh, we're gonna make the Big Ten adapt to us, right? And that's just such a, like, you just can't. And so the point being, like I just said, Mickey understands recruiting. He understands how to recruit Nebraska, and it would be a shame if the next guy doesn't utilize him at the very least. I want him to stay around just for continuity, for the player's sake. You're muted.
Yeah, you're right there. And they would be stupid not to keep him on. He's one of the best wide receiver coaches in the nation. All the guys that are tearing it up in the NFL right now, well, a lot of them, the ones that you hear, oh my gosh, spectacular play. Oh, this guy hitting the ground running as rookies. That comes down to their coaching in college. It doesn't come down to their coaching in the NFL, because those guys that are hitting the ground running as rookies, the past couple of years, those have been Mickey's guys. You know, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson. There was another one.
Terrence Marshall.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Terrence Marshall.
There's he's had a lot of good wide receivers come through his way, and he's been able to prepare them for the next level, which he's a great coach. A good Nebraska guy, knows what it means to be successful here. And good leaders know how to come into a place and look at what has worked and look at what has not worked and get rid of the bad and keep the good. And as we've harped on multiple, it's not all bad. Almost in everything, you can find good in almost anything. And yes, we are approaching our potential second straight 3-9 year. But that being said, there are positives. This staff does have diamonds in the rough, and there are players on this roster that we can compete with. But it's going to be a hell of a job for anybody who comes in. Before we move on to the very brief, what will be a very brief Wisconsin preview, there were two things that came out in the press conferences today that I just wanted to pick your brain on for a minute or so. One is that Trey Palmer is not taking part in Senior Day festivities. And two is that Garrett Nelson was kind of played a little coy about whether he's going to be back or not. Thoughts?
So, two different situations, first of all. I think Trey is well aware of the situation that is at the school, and I think Trey is liable to try to do exactly what he did coming here and follow Mickey wherever he goes, whether that be here or whether that be anywhere else. I don't think, I'm just going to be honest, we are in a different era of college football where these guys haven't, once they see the field, it's not like they've been at Nebraska for 3 years. He doesn't really have a personal affinity for Nebraska any more than he did for LSU. Probably has more for LSU, matter of fact, because he lived there. So that being said, I don't think there's any shade. I don't think there's any hate. I think he has love for the support that Nebraska fans give the team, for sure.
That's not what I thought either. I was thinking along the same lines as you. They haven't had The Place documentary on Trey and Mickey's relationship, and I kind of looked at that as like maybe he's not ready to go and get that payout. I think he wants to ball out one more year, prepare one more year, and then maybe go really high. If he can be on a really good team, he could go first round.
Right.
But he might follow Mickey somewhere if Mickey doesn't stay here. So
right.
That's how
I just think he probably saw it as, well, this probably ain't going to be my real senior day either way, whether it's going to be at Nebraska or whether it's going to be somewhere else. So why would I walk?
So what about Nelly?
So Garrett Nelson is a different case, in my opinion. That to me screams, I am leaning on coming back. I'm leaning to coming back. I want to have that breakout season that I've been talking about. And because to me, a guy like Garrett Nelson, he loves Nebraska. I mean, it's the opposite of Trey, right? He was raised around it. He bleeds for the state. He loves Nebraska. And I don't think he would risk, I mean, not that it's that big of a deal, right? But I don't think he would risk not walking that senior walk if he was really serious about wanting to try his potential in the NFL right now. I mean, now I could be wrong. He could get all these experts coming back to him and be like, Garrett, and lying to him, by the way, and being like, Garrett, you're going to be drafted in the second round or in the third round or something crazy.
Like Austin Allen.
Yeah. And so he could get swooned in that sense. But I will say this: I love Garrett. I think he's a great player. And Garrett, if you're listening, I think you need another year. I'm just being honest. I think you would be great next year, and I think you could potentially be a legitimate high-level draft pick if you come back and have the year you've talked about having. And I think he potentially can have that at the college level, but I think he needs one more year of development. And I think he probably knows that, and that the senior day not walking is very indicative of that to me.
And he might be waiting to see who's the coach too.
100%. I think they all are. I think there's an element of that in everybody. Like if we get a guy, and let's just say, look, I think at this point I've kind of come to the conclusion that not one coach will be 100% positively accepted by all of Husker Nation. I mean, to be honest, like who cares about that? To be honest, because like we've already had that. Like Scott Frost was like 98.5%. Every single person was like, yes,
people
that's
are making
the hire.
tribute videos and crying.
Yeah. Bro, I had like a YouTube algorithm going where like I fell asleep one time, right, while YouTube videos were playing, and I woke up and Scott Frost's wedding video was playing, and I was like, I gotta stop, bro. Like Scott Frost's wedding video, bro. I can't be watching Scott Frost's wedding video. Anyway, so yeah, I don't think any one person will be unanimously accepted by the fan base. It's all about how that person comes in and connects with the players. I mean, if it's a guy who comes in and is just bloviating and doesn't want to have a relationship with the players and it's not looking good, then maybe a guy like Garrett might consider transferring for his senior year if the draft isn't going to work out. But yeah, it's a wait and see. It could be a number of names, and I think everybody should keep an open mind with it.
Yeah, awesome. Well, with that, we're going to go into this week's game. Wisconsin haven't beat them since 2012. Mickey reminded the team of that, writing 2012 on the board in I think the locker room this week. So that's 10 years. 10 years since we've beaten Wisconsin, and it feels like it. And if we, if we had even a remotely of an offense, I think we would be able to firmly beat them this year. They're kind of sputtering. I mean, Iowa looked like they had a competent offense, and Iowa's looked like they have a competent offense the past 2 weeks, actually, which is kind of great as we're going to go into playing them. Yeah,
like both these teams are sort of, they sputtered out early to mid-season, both of these teams, and as October and November have gone on, they've started to find their legs, and that's both teams. Which is great. So Jim Leonhard is an interim coach at Wisconsin. He was a guy that we talked about right after Scott Frost was fired. Really, I mentioned it in passing on the podcast a couple of times because his name had been brought up as a potential candidate for the Nebraska job, and now he's the interim coach there. And the sentiment largely was that Paul Chryst was fired because they wanted to give Jim Leonhard a sufficient chance before he was swooned by potential other opportunities that were going to be presented to him. So really all he had to do this year was get the team on track. And I think he's probably going to be named their head coach some point soon. We'll see how that works out. But it will be an interesting conversation between two interim coaches pregame on the field with Mickey Joseph and with Jim Leonhard. But admittedly, Jim Leonhard was probably dealt I think he was probably dealt a little bit of a better hand than Mickey. Mickey had a tough situation he's brought into. So
yeah.
They have Braylon Allen, who is on Wisconsin this year, who reportedly has been contacted through back channels by Michigan. Jim Leonhard accused Michigan of tampering and all this crazy stuff that happened in the last couple weeks. Braylon Allen was even asked about it in a media session, which is crazy. Think about that. I mean, it's just crazy.
Yeah.
And he denied it. So we'll see. Maybe Michigan will have Braylon Allen next year. Braylon's 18 or 19. He's an ox. He runs like a deer. I mean, he's another classic Melvin Gordon style Wisconsin
Yeah.
running back. I mean,
Yeah. So let me ask you this: if we walk out on the field and Logan is going to probably be the starter, right? If we walk out onto the field, we score first, as you know we've done in a lot of games. What is your level of excitement? Because
I want to beat Wisconsin.
No,
I want to beat
know.
Wisconsin.
Yeah, I know, me too. But like, what's your level of excitement? We go up by a couple of scores because we've squandered that so many times this year, and I'm just losing. I'm losing.
All trends are trends until they're broken, man. That's just how it works.
It's
like,
true.
It's not about us being excited. It's about the team being able to finish right at the end of the day. And I mean, I would be really excited if we go up by 2 or 3 scores in the late fourth quarter, because that would spell a lot of good things for us. But at the end of the day, like, I'm excited for that moment when our team gets up on another team like Wisconsin and they don't take their foot off the acceleration. They're able to finish the game. And that's what excites me more than anything, is if they go up by 1 or 2 scores, if they have the control of the game, that's an opportunity for them to prove it to themselves that they can do that. And that's really what it's all about at the end of the day. I think no matter what head coach comes in, he's going to have a hell of a time getting that sort of mentality of, oh no, what's going to happen next out of this program. And did we do it at the same time? There we go. Yeah, so that's going to be a hell of a job for whoever accepts this job. Is going to be changing the mentality of the team in game and getting them to believe in themselves. So I will be excited if they go up by a couple of scores, because it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity for this team to prove it to themselves.
Yeah. So for me, I'm right with you there. I want that to happen. Our offense has sputtered. I think the last time I saw us really, really competent, Casey was quarterback and we were playing Purdue.
Yep. And Casey might be there for this game. He might be there. Mickey had another quote in the press conference. He talked about it. So Casey is taking reps. He's throwing the ball. So last week it was the classic whip press conference where they were like, so is Casey out there? He's like, yeah, he's out there. They're like, but he's not throwing. But he's out there though. That's what he said. He's not throwing, but he's out there though. So so what's he doing? But this week it sounded much more like he's actually taking reps, so potentially he could play. And Logan is not one of the reasons, by the way, that potentially that Chubba was actually in the starting role. Yeah, we didn't even harp on this, but it was discovered Logan was banged up as well. So that could have played a big factor in who they chose to start against Michigan. So hopefully one of them's healthy. Hopefully either Casey or Logan is healthy. The guy that they're going to go with, if neither of them are healthy, is Jared Sinek. He's an in-state prospect at quarterback, and he's not the biggest guy ever. But I've seen his highlights. He can do a little bit of everything. That's what Mickey said in the press conference today as well. I watched his highlights after that. He's pretty good. He's athletic. He's got a good arm. He's just an in-state walk-on prospect. So that's why it worries everybody. But at the end of the day, both you and I know,
yeah,
a gamer's a gamer, man.
Yeah, no, yeah, for me, that's weird to see too. So we have a walk-on guy as our number 2, ahead of 2 scholarship quarterbacks.
Yeah, well, I mean, then that's the perception, right? Walk-on, scholarship. But at the end of the day, like, it's just about roster. All of that stuff is just about roster management. With our scholarship guys that we got left, we got Heinrich and we got Richard Torres, right? Heinrich is a supreme talent, but he's young. He's big. He's athletic. He's got a cannon for an arm, but he's young. And he is an in-state prospect, but he was a scholarship guy. And then Richard Torres, who's out of state. You're not going to get a walk-on come to your school from out of state. You're just not. I mean, it happens from time to time, but like most of the walk-ons are going to be in-state or peripheral guys. Mm-hmm. So Richard Torres was Scott's guy. He really liked Richard, so he's got a scholarship as well. My point being is that's the perception, is like you want a scholarship guy there, but at the end of the day, you want the best guy there. And if Sinek is the best guy, then throw him out there, man.
Yeah, it's true. All right, let's get into score predictions.
Let's do it.
What you thinking? What you thinking?
I think it's going to be a bit of a Big Ten West game.
Oh, really?
I think it's going to be a bit of a big. Did I spell that right? Predictions. Yes, I spelled that right.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah, no, I think it'll be a bit of a Big Ten West game, which means one thing and one thing only. It's going to be boring. That's what it means. It's going to be boring. It's probably going to be a boring game because a lot of it's going to be exactly what Mickey talked about. Banging. Lots of banging. Yeah. And I think our defense will play well for the majority of the game. But, again, if our offense doesn't give them any support, then it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. I think that we got to stick to the run. I think we got to have long, sustained drives. And if we do that, we'll have a chance. This isn't a Goliath of a Wisconsin team. We can beat this team, no doubt about it. But yeah, our offense is going to have support. I see this being like a 24-21, 21-17, something along those lines. So I'll go 21-17 Wisconsin.
All right, let me write this down because we were actually kind of close last week, actually.
I was pretty close, huh? What was my score prediction?
On the Nebraska's score. So you had
us. Of course, it's not a wide margin.
But you had us. I had them scoring 10. You had them scoring 15.
So oh yeah, mine was 47-15, right?
47-15.
That's right.
Mine was 56-10.
No, yours was 66-10. Yours was like they scored like 66 points. No, 56. Okay, 56. Okay.
Yeah, I have.
I'll verify. Down. I'll go back and listen, but I believe you right now.
Down. All right. So you said what was it?
21-17 Wisconsin.
21-17 Wisconsin.
13-4. No, we're not just kidding.
All right, so I'm going to do this because I can't keep being pessimistic. I think I can't. At this point in the season, there's only 2 games left. YOLO. Nobody said that in probably a decade, but I just did. So I'm gonna go 35-14 Nebraska.
35-14 Nebraska. Wow, you're picking us in a route. I hope so.
Yeah. It's at home. Last home game of the season, right?
Yep, senior day.
Senior day. This team's
and hopefully in the next 2 or 3 weeks we'll get some answers to some of these burning questions that we've been talking about.
Yeah, because it can't keep going on like this. The kids need this win.
Look for us live as soon as a coaching announcement is made. We're going to try to go live as soon as we can, right after the announcement. If it's in the middle of the day, then we'll go that afternoon, whenever we can. But yeah, we're all waiting. We're all waiting for that. What do you think? Let me ask you this. I've heard this question sort of floated around. What do you think? What if Iowa game passes, Black Friday weekend passes, the entire week after passes, and we haven't heard anything yet? I can tell by your face.
We'll hear something.
We don't have to talk about hypotheticals. But, yeah, I hope we'll hear something. But, look, at the end of the day, he might be interviewing an active coach who didn't want to interview until his main season was over. I mean, so that might be an actual possibility, to be honest with you. It could drag on for about a week after the Iowa game. It's like once it gets to be about December 3rd, 4th, it's like you gotta have a guy in there at the very least, so the people that you have on hook can at least sign if they want to. You know what I mean?
Anyways, that's going to be it for today on Cornhusker Corner. Please subscribe and like and smash that notification bell.
Always. Also, give us a comment. Tell us whatever you want to tell us. Tell us who you want to be a head coach in Nebraska. Tell us why we're dumb. Tell us anything you want to tell us. Just comment.
Just comment. And then follow us on Twitter at @CHusker_corner and on Instagram, just Cornhusker Corner. So that's it. And always remember that there's no like
this podcast.